This is the continual evolution of the East Coast beat. So, so um, sometimes rhythm changes. Sometimes I don't know if we have any command over that in our lives. I don't know if we one day finally decide, I want to change and then it happens, or if regardless of whether or not we want to change, we do, you know. I mean, I understand different, well, from some things such as smoking to other things such as who you spend your time with, to who you read, to who you watch. There was a time when I watched movies. I had a little partner. He went to film school, and he had a partner, and they would watch movies, and I would go sometimes and watch movies. And it's kind of interesting, to be around people that looked at movies other than just a strict entertainment. I would always, oh, I like this, I like that. Well, what do you think about this? Well, I mean, you got to understand, I would always give it to technology. Oh, well, how about how they filmed this movie? Well, I can understand the story, but we couldn't do back in the 80s and the 90s when I was watching these kinds of movies. There was a lot that still could not be done. A lot was very rough. That's why I think his name was John Henson. He made the Muppets, and I love their movies because they were fun for kids. I thought they were fun for. I was a kid. I watched it. I thought it was fun. I thought the idea of a band traveling around was fun. I thought all the little side stories were fun. Um, and it was fun watching, man's creation. That's what, through inspiration. But that was man's creation, the Muppets. That's why I like cartoons when I was growing up, because that was a man's work. I mean, I understand now that building a camera is the same, and operating a camera and running electricity and building a city, and all of this is all through inspiration. But growing up, I always closer to the tips of my fingers and what I could see. So I thought sculpting was inspiration. I've tried to sculpt on a piece of wood, but I was using the wrong chisel and it hurt. I was like, man, I can't believe people, maybe if I was using a better chisel and something like that. I was using a steel chisel on wood. That's what someone finally told me. He says, I was trying to sculpt an owl. We lived at this one house, and there was a spot in the wood where I kept looking at it, and it was where a branch had been cut off. And I wanted to try to do a relief of an owl inside the hollow from where the branch had been cut off. But they were telling me my roommate had a hammer and chisel, so I start banging and banging and banging at it. And then after a while, he's like, "Bro, that's the wrong chisel. That's a steel chisel. That's not gonna work on wood." So I just took it at his word. But I was like, you know what? This hurts. And I used to admire sculptures, and I can just imagine how much that a lifetime of decorating churches and palaces and bakeries and downtown statues. I can imagine that uh, you would be so incredibly strong and so incredibly weary at the same time. Like every time you ever took your kid out for ice cream, that was hours of banging on some piece of stone with a hammer, and that's how you did that. And you had to do it artfully enough to be chosen over other starving artists. But that's what I saw growing up. I saw sculptures, statues, every now and then. When I got into school, they would hold, because I was in the Department of Defense school. And so, like one time, we got to see a traveling, presentation of the Jungle Story with Mowgli. You know what I'm saying? And it was a stage play, and that's how I got introduced to stage. And then one time there was, a local ballet school put on a not like 6 and 8 and 12 year olds. These are like 25, gonna be professional ballet artists. They put on a show for us. One time we went to the movie theater because of the acoustics, and they had it was I forgot exactly what they're called, but it was not an entire orchestra, but it was orchid, some kind of orchid. I don't know. I forgot what they called it. But they had and then they played like 25 minutes of the Star Trek movie track for us. And, I thought that was pretty cool. And like I said, I was watching all that. So by the time I was old enough to go to my first bar, oh yeah, it's fun. It was fun, and then particularly I didn't go alone. I went with some friend. I didn't start going to bars alone until, later on in life. But I would usually go out with a friend. I went to I didn't really start hanging out in bars until I got divorced, and then I was 19 years old, and it wasn't time to just give it all up. And I hadn't really dated, so I met a cat named he was a scout named Rain, and he would go out with me on the weekends, and we drank and we danced, and we like okay, like we'd go downtown together, and then if I had a girl, I would just break off. Friday night, oh well, hey, it's 12:30 at night. We're just gonna head back to the pad, get something to eat, and I couldn't invite him with me because I was a guest. But he had a girlfriend that fucking invited me to come stay, and so when I'd go with him, and he had his girl, I could stay at the apartment with them, and one time to thank her, I went to the local market and I made baked zucchini in a tomato sauce, and I bought a bunch of mozzarella cheese, and I baked zucchini, and she came back to her apartment and she ate it. She was a vegetarian, but I think she ate cheese. Um, and that's how I thanked her for letting me stay. And I didn't invite, like, I had one girl come over. She knew, but I didn't like show up on a Thursday. Oh, need a place to crash. I didn't do none of that. I always showed up with Rain. One time, I don't know for what reason, uh, Rain had to work that day or something, but he said, I'll meet you there. So I showed up and just waited for him. And then, like I said, Diana's German was pretty good, and she was a local. And, like, so she knew, like, where a couple of U.S. soldiers with a German girl could have fun rather than get into a fight with a bunch of neo-Nazi skinheads. You know what I'm saying? So she would take us places, and like I said, I'd stay at her place, and I cooked for that one time. We went to the movies as a group, me, Rain, and Diana. And she took us to this pretty chill place where you could even go outside and watch your movie on a TV screen and smoke cigarettes. So we went and watched Forrest Gump in German. Or no, was it in English? I think it was in English because I remember the accent specifically, Forrest Gump's accent. So we went and watched it in English with German subtitles, and like that's the kind of fun that she had, with us. It was like, hey, let's go here, let's go there. I had a couple German friends that liked concerts, like local bands and stuff. I had a couple German friends that liked rock climbing, but rock climbing was not really my thing. You know what I'm saying? I was a little too center mass solid, and I couldn't, like, a lot of times, oh, pull yourself up by two fingertips. Come on, man. You know what I'm saying? Oh, there's a hold. I'm like, I'm gonna have to jump like 6 inches just to get that. And I don't know how to jump onto the wall. Every time I jump, I fall back. So I just gave it up. That was my one partner and particularly took me snowboarding to the Austrian Alps for my first time. Snowboarding was in the Alps. Yeah, let's go snowboarding. Like the night before, he shows me like 15 minutes of tutorial on how to snowboard. None of it includes how to stop. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, I went snowboarding in the Austrian Alps and fell every time. I had and almost got into a fight. Uh, I was coming down, and another snowboarder was coming down, and I didn't know it was a girl. Um, and she came down, and she was being very aggressive with me, and she actually clipped my board and made us crash. So she makes us crash. So I'm like, all right. And then I look over to see what's happening when we're on the ground. She jumps up off the ground, undoes her fucking snowboard because these were hard binders, hard binding snowboard boots to the snowboard. She undoes her binding while in the air, lands on the ground and starts walking at me, taking her gloves off. And that's when I realized it was a girl. I was like, oh shit. And so I take off my board because I don't know how to stand on a board on a hill, plus snowboarders are coming past us, you know what I'm saying? So I take off my shit, and by the time she gets to me, she's yelling at me, probably in Austrian, I don't know. And I have this big black XXX triple X fucking sweatshirt on that they used to sell at this place called C&A. And C&A was kind of like a Target, I guess. It was more expensive than your average store, but it wasn't like a designer like an H&M, I guess you could say. So they had this store called C&A, and I had bought this triple X fucking snow sweater, and I was wearing it with a beanie that I already lost because I fell down being T-barred up the side of the mountain all the way to the top because the first time I only made it halfway, and the second time I was like, you know what, make it all the way to the top. He did teach me how to ride the T-bar. So the second time I got on the T-bar, I actually made it all the way to the top, and then I had to snowboard down, not knowing how to stop at the end. You know what I'm saying? But that was just some of the things I did, as a soldier during my free time. You know what I'm saying? There were a couple planned trips I had with some friends. It's kind of like the Las Vegas trip. You meet some people, you're hanging out, you're drinking beer, you're eating pretzels. They're a construction worker, that was in the because in Germany it's almost at the time I was in, it was like forced, unless you were a university student, disabled, or had a special pass. If you were 18 or 20 something years old, you were going to do 2 years in the German military. So by the time I was 22 years old, 21, 22, some of these guys had already done their 2 years. And here I am, this U.S. soldier, just loving their country. So, of course, hey, let's go here, let's go there. I'll take you here. I know this great place where we can eat this, and, you'll love it. But like I said, they're working. I'm a field soldier. I wasn't a field soldier, but I was a soldier in a field unit. So, I was working 12 days on. Like, my people were constantly, we were either in the field or training to go to the field, or people were being sent here and there as part of other, training task force and stuff like that. So, my battalion used to guard the Czechoslovakian border before that stabilized and became Czech and Slovakia. But they used to do the border there as a cavalry unit. So, and then when I was in, because the Czechoslovakian border had stabilized, they sent us to the desert. So to go learn how to drive our tanks in the desert, and cool with me. I was in a brick kitchen with running water, and we had a shower and a toilet. It was great. I mean, fucking, well, one time, during my deployment, I even got to go to one of Hussein's old palaces, to go swimming in the pool, and it was I think it was I don't remember what sea it was, but it was the sea, and there were big ass anti-ship mines in it. These things are huge. I was like, damn, bro. Like they were really prepared for attack. Like So that is too part of life. At one point, I was in a situation where I didn't know what was going to happen, and I was fearing the worst, and and then it got worse, and then but not the worst, but it got bad, and I could have lost faith there. I could have just given up or took the easy route out, but I didn't, and this happened, and then that happened, and then, because I did this instead of that. Like I said, when I was in Colorado, I still had a year of informal probation left. I told my probation officer out here, hey, my aunt's got this place 6 miles outside of town. It's cool. They're business owners. They don't do drugs. They don't have wild, crazy parties. It's like a small town community. All their friends they've known for 20 years, you know. And so my aunt, knew the right people in town because that's just how they are. My aunt talks to everybody. Even when she comes visits me in California, she'll still talk to the guy in front of us in line, you know what I'm saying? With her little silver curly hair and dark, tinted sunglasses. Hey, what's good here? She's one of those. She's either reading a book or talking to a stranger. That's how she used to be. So, yeah, so she, knew the this, the that. And by the time I got there, they just basically told me, look, we know who you are. People know who you are. This is a small town. If we don't get called to you, one of those, if you don't see us, it's good news. You know what I'm saying? So, like I said, I did. I played football. I went outside of city limits. You know what I'm saying? But like I said, at the same time, I only drank like twice. Once was after we won homecoming for the first time in 25 years, and once was at a little private party. Um, I don't know, man. I'd never had. Everybody kept telling me about this drink. I can't even Purple Passion, which was like Everclear and Kool Aid, or Everclear and Boone's Hill, one of the two. But um, everybody kept talking about it. And one day, this was after I had been there like a year, and I had played football, and I think I had wrestled, and I think I was on the soccer team, the city soccer team. And I get invited to this little private party. Someone's going away, so I show up. You know what I'm saying? And they're drinking Purple Passion with canned fruit. I don't know. Maybe they're trying to make Pruno. I don't know. But at one point we're outside and someone says it's raining, and I'm like, comes out that it was just one of the guys had climbed on the roof, got drunk, and started puking over the side. I was like, oh my god, just horrible. I woke up that morning, sleeping by the roots of a tree. Like hugging the roots, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, I mean, like I said, that was one thing. I had heard a little bit about Buddhism. I had heard a little bit about nonviolence, and even though I knew I was going to join the military and be a soldier, that's one reason why I took the job I took. At no time during the showing of the Field Cook video did they show me kicking in somebody's door and shooting them. Or did they show me getting into a firefight with a bunch of, political radicals from some country I've never heard of. I'm not downing what a U.S. soldier does. And it has to be done. And if I didn't have arthritis, I would have been there myself. But I was a half step behind. I had a dislocated shoulder. I had arthritis, juvenile arthritis. There was no way that I could carry the weight. So I served as I could. And luckily, the way that I served as I could, one of the opportunities was to serve as a field cook. Like I said, when they qualified me for the 50 cal and said you're gonna have a spot, if anything happens, run to your 50 cal and fucking lock and load and fucking send some shit down range. You know what I'm saying? I figured, okay, cool. I'm cool with that. I'm a soldier. If you attack my convoy and I have a weapon with rounds in it, I'll fucking engage the enemy. But like I said, the one time I did, point guard duty in the desert, there was two of us, one magazine and 20 rounds. So I asked the other guy if he had ever done this. He said yes. I gave him the bullets, and I was cool with that. Experience before fucking anything else. You know what I'm saying? Let's be professional. You know. So that was life too, and like I said, that's the thing about life. At one point, I used to watch movies on TV, and I would see field cooks. Every little World War II, movie they ever had, at some point, everybody's eating in a some little tent, or, some little, you know, something. And they're all standing in line, and they had just taken a shower, after 3 days of not sleeping in the field while waiting for, to be attacked. They finally get to come in for, a little R&R, and they get to take a shower, and hey, here's, mashed potatoes and gravy and corn and pork chops. You know what I'm saying? I loved cooking for the military. That's why it didn't make sense after the military. I mean, there were times after the military where I could get behind cooking because of who was eating my food. You know what I'm saying? But that was one thing, was cooking in the army. I mean, like I said, I was cooking for these guys, and I knew that if we ever got deployed, that I'd be cooking these guys their last meal. So I showed respect for that. Um, and even after I got out of the military, I still showed respect for that food, but I lost the desire to be a part of that. You know what I'm saying? I do remember though, one time when I worked at a coffee shop. Well, it was a espresso bar sandwich shop, and the fucking sandwiches were more than were more than an hour's of minimum wage. The lattes were more than an hour's worth of minimum wage. So if you went in there, you'd be spending 2 hours worth of minimum wage for a sandwich, a latte. He did have pretty good potato salad, though, I will admit. And you could either get potato salad or pasta salad, and then he used to let me get fruit, but then he said it got too expensive. So, and some fruit, and like I said, he was a pretty. I mean, he did it well. It was a nice place, but he just had to make money. It got to that point, I think, where I don't know why. With that business, he just had to make the money, and he started halving, like we went from, I think it was like 6 ounces of meat to 3 ounces of meat, and instead of 4 ounces of lettuce and tomatoes and onions at 2 ounces. I mean, he cut everything in half, and he still increased the price, and people just did not like that at all. You know what I'm saying? I didn't like it. He really tried. Like, he had good coffees. He had Ethiopian Hahar and Java, knees, this, and it was all pretty good. But like I said, he really started getting to the point where every little dollar mattered. Like, I remember when I would come in, I would get to make 3 coffees, and one was always a decaf. And one was supposed to be a bold, and then one was supposed to be, but I would make the coffees I like, and they tended to be bolder. But in the beginning, there was these group of kids, and there was this one big white gorilla with red hair and a beard, or goatee, and his name was Lee, but he used to say, "Call me Ugg," because everybody calls me ugly. You know what I'm saying? So Lee, and there were a couple others. I can't remember their names. I remember one of them actually ended up a bartender at a bar I would go sing karaoke at. But uh, there was a couple of kids that used to hang out, and when I would make a full, carafe, big ass thermos of coffee, if you don't serve that stuff within so long, it just doesn't work. And so the kids would come in, and it would be like $2.50, and like minimum wage was like $4. So it'd be like $2.50 or something like that for a cup of coffee, but it'd only be a quarter for a refill. So sometimes, these kids would come in like an hour after lunch when it was completely not busy at all, and they'd come in with 75 cents and ask for a cup of coffee, or $1.50 and ask for a cup of coffee. And I'm like, well, I really should, in a little bit, I'm going to end up throwing this stuff away anyways. So I would take the $1.50 and then just charge them a quarter, and they would ask people walking by, hey, can I get a quarter for some coffee? They're sitting at a table with a cup of coffee. They're not doing drugs behind the building, you know what I'm saying? But, they would ask people, hey, can I get a quarter for a cup of coffee? And then we had community college age kids hanging out at our coffee shop instead of nobody, or the one, lady reading her book that doesn't really talk to people, you know what I'm saying? But like I said, he needed the 250, not the 175, not the $1 plus a 50-cent tip. He didn't need that. He needed the 250, you know what I'm saying? And I didn't understand business. I now know a little more now the meaning of a dollar. I didn't really, I grew up in a certain age where it was like I knew that everybody kept telling me shit was expensive, but it was always that price. So as long as I could get what I wanted, I was getting what I wanted. There was always stuff I couldn't have. Like I couldn't have a brand new Honda Civic, you know what I'm saying? But I did have a 20-year-old Cadillac. So I did have a suit that matched, you know what I'm saying? Like if I wanted to go to LA and eat pizza at beatnik night, you know what I'm saying? Just give me the address, and, I'll put the $40 in the tank to go there and back, you know what I'm saying? But that was my life, and like I said, did I have any influence on that? Was it that I heard one day you'll be drawn to this, one day you'll find yourself writing for hours, not at a time, but you'll be fine nightly, you'll write nightly before you go to sleep, and years later you'll be reading that and you'll think, I don't talk like that, that's not really my voice, but that was your writing, that's how you think to yourself. So I advocate writing to yourself, or writing and not writing for other people. Well, you can write for other people to read or to be read by other people, but the conversation in the end has to be towards self. You have to write towards self so that you know how you think towards yourself. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't know if it's true or not, but they say everybody has a persona, everyone wears a mask, everyone's trying to appease and consolidate, and we're trying to be friendly. Who wants to be the rude asshole with no friends? You know what I'm saying? Or the guy that nobody can be around for more than 15 minutes because they want to fucking push you in front of a bus. Who wants to be that guy? Nobody. So we act a certain way. I myself know that I do the same thing. I imagine situations in my head. I sometimes have the same conversation with the same people over and over again, just slightly different. Because like I said, hey, if I see you 1,000 times a year, if I see you or 1,000 times, out of 1,000 days, I see you every other day. We're probably going to have different conversations than if I see you once in the middle of nowhere and I think I'll never see you again. Especially if the moon is out. The continuation of the East Coast beat.